This is Channel 253.
Move to Tacoma. On this episode of Move to Tacoma.
The City of Tacoma did a homeownership study as well. In 2021, they did a homeownership study which actually highlighted a lot of disparities. I think a lot of COVID just gave us time to slow down.
Everybody had time to run some data.
And just run some data and analyze. And then, they were pretty shocked with the results that they found, And one thing that still resonates with me is that from 1990 to 2020, Black homeownership has been decreasing in the city of Tacoma, where every other ethnic race has been stable or increasing.
Channel 253 is member supported. I'm producer Doug Mackey, and I hope you will show your support by going to channel253.com/membership and join. Thank you. We're back.
I'm Marguerite, and I want you to move to Tacoma.
Move to Tacoma, move to Tacoma, move to Tacoma.
You'll like it.
Move to Tacoma, move to Tacoma, move to Tacoma.com.
I'm Marguerite with MoveToTacoma.com, and I am here today for our very first video episode of the podcast with Anzhane Slaughter. Welcome, Anzhane.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
I'm very excited to talk with you today about the series of classes that you're going to be doing for the City of Tacoma.
Yes.
But before we get down to that, I would like to ask when you moved to Tacoma and why.
Yeah, so I first moved to Tacoma in 2019. I no longer live in Tacoma. Excuse me.
You live across the street from Tacoma.
I live across the street, Federal Way, right down the road.
Awesome. And which neighborhood did you buy your house in when you moved to Tacoma?
South Tacoma. So right off of 72nd Street, right by the freeway.
And what did you like about living in South Tacoma? Like, what was the appeal for you?
Yeah. So when thinking about moving to Tacoma, I'm born and raised in Seattle. It was kind of frightening to move to Tacoma. Most of my family is still in Seattle. So being close to the freeway was very important to me. Also, living in a residential area, this home that I bought, super cute, 3-bed, a little over 1,200 square feet. It's right across the street from a school. It's very residential and friendly neighborhood. So I knew this wasn't going to be my forever home, but it was my first investment, and I knew that, I would like a family to move in.
Yeah.
What better area than right here in South Tacoma?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you are part of, your business is Young Black Homeowners.
Correct.
And can you tell me about the series of classes that you're going to be doing with the City of Tacoma? Like, where did this come from? And who's going to come to these classes?
Yeah, absolutely. So YBH was founded in 2022. I actually got into real estate back in 2018. And when I got into real estate, I knew I wanted to increase Black homeownership. My background's actually in law and policy, so I already had a wealth of knowledge around historical policies that have kind of excluded my community from homeownership.
Yeah.
So wanted to be an agent of change and take the initiative. So right away, I got licensed to teach the first-time homebuyer classes through the Washington State Housing and Finance Commission. Was doing that from 2018 to about 2021. And then I was like, I think we need to go a little bit further with this education. I would love for this education to be culturally relevant and trauma-informed.
Okay. Before we go that far, I think a lot of people who are listening are like, what's in Washington State? What did you just say?
Yes.
So what is the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, and what are those classes? What is it that people learn why do people go to these classes?
Yeah, so the Washington State Housing and Finance Commission is a government commission through Washington State. It was founded back in the 80s, actually, to provide resources and opportunity towards homeownership for the residents of Washington State. So they've done a lot of work. They have down payment assistance programs through the state, and in order to have access to those programs, you need to go through the education. So that's where the classes come in.
So when somebody hears like down payment assistance, I don't think regular people know what that means.
Yeah.
So does that mean that the government just gives you money forever, or how does that work?
Yeah, this is a great question, because I actually used the down payment assistance to purchase my first home.
Okay, so how did it work?
I sure did. So you take the class. It was just a 1-day, 5-hour-long class. You receive a certificate. The certificate is valid for 2 years. So in that 2 years, you can go and use that certificate to purchase a home. Back when I bought, they were given about 4% of the home price, up to certain limits depending on what county you're in.
So they basically give you the down payment.
Yes, but it's not a grant. It is a loan. So it does have to be repaid, but all payments are deferred until you either resell, you refinance, or you pay off your loan.
So I'm buying a house and it's a $400,000 house, and 4% would be $16,000 to put down on that house.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is that, with FHA and even some conventional programs, you only need 3.5%. So you can actually use that other 0.5% towards some of your closing costs.
That's awesome.
And that's what I did.
Okay. So people have to take this class. So you already teach these classes to people all the time.
Exactly. They're public classes. Anybody can attend.
We'll drop a link in the show notes if you're curious about that.
Yeah. And so I was doing just those regular classes, for about 4 years. And then I was like, I want to add on to this great foundation that the commission has already done.
Yeah.
And so I founded Young Black Homeowners. It's really important for me because I don't come from a background of wealth or homeownership or any sort of knowledge around financial literacy, to make sure that this education is reachable, tangible to people that also come from communities like mine, where maybe they're the first in their family to ever purchase a home, And when we're educating communities of color, we have to consider cultural relevancy, right? And the trauma that goes into our decision making, honestly.
So how does that show up as far as education? Like, what are people asking for? What's getting in the way?
Well, you just don't know what you don't know. And if you have generations of people that just don't know what they don't know, then they're often passing down wrong information or no information. And then you just have to be that person that is determined to go out and get it. And it can be really hard because, as we know, the real estate industry is all about relationships.
Yes. Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that it doesn't matter what background you come from, or if you're first generation, second generation, or you never even thought about purchasing a home, that you could have access to the information in a way that you can understand it and then apply it as well.
So when you first started teaching the classes through your own business, what did you find was coming up? Like, how was it different than just teaching classes for first-time buyers, through the Washington State Housing Finance Commission? Oh, my God. So, how was it different when you started focusing? Like, I'm going to focus specifically on communities of color. Like, how did the class shift and adjust for that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Marguerite. So, a lot of the classes, they didn't talk about the history of real estate.
That's convenient.
And so that's why it wasn't really culturally relevant or trauma informed. If we don't talk about, the historical policies that have kept individuals out of purchasing homes.
You might be so in shame, not realizing.
Seriously. Yeah. Or you might think that it's just not even possible for you, or that you have to have this exuberant amount of money in order to make it possible. And so a lot of it was just undoing some of those myths, was with the facts, talking about in the housing crisis of 2008, 53% of Black Americans lost their wealth, right? Yeah. So now we're talking about trauma. Yeah. And when you know somebody, that has gone through foreclosure, or maybe you personally were a part of the household that lost their home, then you might not ever want to get back into homeownership. You might not ever want to get back into real estate or ownership in general because of that trauma.
And we're seeing this a lot with millennials in general, where just they were in their parents' homes while they lost their home, or where they had to short sell their home. And then you layer on like the historic exclusion of Black people from housing, and it's like doubled. Exactly.
So if you don't really know that there are champions out in the community that are advocating for you, then it's really hard to even think that it's possible. You don't really know the first step. And so I wanted to at least, present my company, Young Black Homeowners, as that resource for individuals in the community.
So what kinds of things are you covering in the classes? Like, where do you start? I mean, like, in my mind, I'm such a realtor, right? I'm like, start with credit. But maybe you don't start. Maybe you start. You're saying you start with history.
Yeah. So in our classes, the one program that we actually have that's ongoing right now is our $100,000 down payment assistance program. This is major. Young Black Homeowners received $2 million from the state of Washington in 2023 to offer down payment assistance to Black families. Because it's not only the City of Tacoma's initiative, but the whole state of Washington has this initiative to increase Black homeownership. And so this down payment assistance program was just one way that they wanted to, try to bridge the gap. Yeah. And so we went after the funds. We were successful and received the dollars. And for all of the 20 applicants that were able to help with $100,000 down, they all had to go through the Young Black Homeowners homebuyer education.
And $100,000 is like a good chunk of change for down, which you need a good chunk of change for down payments in the Pacific Northwest. Like, that's important. We have high home prices. But like, what is their like requirements for applying for that? For people who might be like, oh, next time these funds are available, like, how do I get in on that?
Absolutely. So all of the applicants, they had to still qualify for their first mortgage. So this is just assistance. So you still have to meet the same, mortgage requirements as, most banks, most lending institutions, right? So you got to have the 620 credit score, 2 years of job history, and then a debt to income ratio that will qualify you in order to get into a home. But at least you don't have to worry about the down payment, and so that was major.
But obviously that down payment isn't available to like everybody. Like, how do they, like, what are the requirements as far as who can apply? Like, if you're just like, I am Black, I can apply. But I feel like they probably made it a little more nuanced than that.
Yeah. So there are some income requirements. It is based on the area median income, 80% of the area median income per household size.
Okay.
When we first opened application back in August of 2023, we did receive a large number of applicants, actually over 132 applicants in just a 30-day window.
Oh, wow.
Right? And we only had room for 20. So it did make the selection process very difficult. But one thing that we were really looking for in this first rollout was that the individuals that were going to be a part of the program are also leaders in their community in some way, shape, or form, so that this home is not just a shelter for you and your immediate family, but it also serves as a purpose for the community.
So I think I was making an assumption that there was going to be like some rigorous, like, anytime you deal with the government, right? Like, there's some kind of rigorous, like, vetting process that's happening, but you're describing it almost like, okay, for our group, it was like there's like a little committee, and it's like you guys like had the power of that selection process. Was that how it really worked?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
And I had myself and our partner over at African American Leadership Forum, their executive director Don Bennett, we had the executive authority to select who was selected into the process.
Wow.
And we're starting to see the government actually work more in this favor as, using intermediary community organizations to kind of do some of their groundwork.
Like people who've been doing this forever. Yeah.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
And it helps with, trust relationship building as well,
Yeah.
because the government, as we know, they have a lot of work to do around that area.
You could look into that. Okay, so I want to take a break really quick, and when we come back, I want to learn more about the Black Homeownership Initiative and like where that came from, and also these classes from the City of Tacoma. Let's get into it.
Our first video episode of the Move to Tacoma podcast is sponsored by TAPCO Credit Union, Tacoma and Pierce County's trusted personal banking partner since 1934. TAPCO has helped generations of people who moved to Tacoma with home loans, car loans, checking accounts, and more, with great rates and friendly service you can only get from a local credit union. TAPCO Credit Union, rooted in South Sound. Visit tapcocu.org. Insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
We're back with Move to Tacoma with Anzhane Slaughter. Welcome back, Anzhane.
Thank you.
So when we last spoke, you were telling us about the Black Homeownership Initiative, which is a program it's not a federal program. This is from the state of Washington, right?
No, actually. So BHI is a network of organizations that are all a part of this initiative to increase Black homeownership.
So, okay, so when you say a network of organizations, again, we're not talking about the government. We're talking about like private organizations,
private and public nonprofit organizations. BHI actually came out of the JP Chase initiative, that they put out on the national scale back in 2020, and they identified 5 hotspots. Seattle, Tacoma just happened to be one of those hotspots across the country where they want to see an increase in Black homeownership. And to do that, they really, they put in place a convener organization, which is Civic Commons, to just kind of get the ball rolling, to kind of...
And Civic Commons is a nonprofit out of Seattle?
I'm not too sure about where they came from.
We'll put it in the show notes.
But yes, but they are phenomenal. They really do embody the essence of this work, which is really important. They're coalescing organizations that are interested in seeing an increase in Black homeownership. Right now, we have about 85 organizations in this area that have signed on to be a part of BHI, and YBH, we're just one of them.
Okay, and so I'm just trying to visualize this in my head. So the initial seed money came from Chase.
Yep.
And so they funded this initiative, and then the Civic Commons people are kind of leading on it, but they're gathering together different kinds of nonprofits, and like obviously you're a private company, pulling them together. But like, is all the money still coming from the Chase Fund, or is it like these organizations are also bringing funds to the pool?
Well, all of these organizations, because some of the organizations would include like Habitat for Humanity,
Oh, right.
Homesite,
Yeah.
Urban League.
They
like
already
they
have stuff set
pots of
aside.
money,
Right.
right? They're already doing this work. So part of it is just kind of taking us out of our silos and bringing us together to really show the bigger impact and the messaging to the community as well.
Yeah.
That wow, you have a huge support, this huge network that wants to see you succeed when it comes to your homeownership goals. But there was some seed money that the Chase put out there, right, to get the ball rolling.
Right.
But we also know that there's a lot of money that's flowing for homeownership on the legislative level from government.
Right.
And so we've actually partnered up with the Washington State Housing and Finance Commission. As we know, in 2023, the Home Covenant Act passed in Washington State, which pretty much removed all racially based covenants from record. It also added a $100 recording fee for all real estate transactions. So now create special credit programs to help those that were harmed due to these racially based covenants.
Okay, so when you say like racial, like they're striking these racist covenants from the record, like what do you mean?
Yeah.
I think a lot of folks don't read all the papers when they buy a house. Like they don't always know what's in there, but there's some messed up stuff in there.
For sure. And I think the word covenant just isn't used too often. So I'm happy to kind of explain. A covenant itself is just a private contract, a contract between two neighbors even. And that's what we saw. We saw that neighbors were getting together, coming up with these contracts that said you cannot sell this home to someone of color. We saw African descent. We saw Asian descent. And there was other cases where it was religious, Muslim.
Absolutely.
Right? So when there's these covenants, and the hard thing about these covenants, which is why the government needed to get involved, is because the court system actually upheld these racially based covenants to prevent access to homeownership for those protected classes, which we know today has detrimental impacts. When you're not able to purchase homes, decades ago before the growth, while you can still get in at a reasonable price, and to be able to benefit off of the long-term appreciation and and growth, then it puts you in a really tough position in our market today, where we're seeing, and I'm a real estate professional, we're both realtors, we're helping people get into homes on a regular daily basis. And young people, and not even just young people, but really any people, young, middle age, they're getting gifts. They're getting gifts from their grandparents, from their great uncles. And if our grandparents weren't able to purchase those homes in those desired communities, which these were desired areas, waterfront properties, anywhere that was close to, anywhere that wasn't necessarily redlined. Yeah. Because that's how we kind of get into this conversation of redlining. Yeah. There were actual lines on maps for where Black people could live, and so they weren't the desired areas.
And those areas even had limits on the financing, right? So in those areas, you couldn't get an FHA loan or a VA loan to purchase in those neighborhoods. You would have to pay a higher rate of interest, which again eats into the amount of wealth that you're going to be able to develop. Exactly. And then, of course, the appreciation, like between the redlined area and the area where white people were allowed to or were supposed to live, or keeping their area, like the appreciation over 30, 40, 50 years is pretty different. Yeah. And all of the, the withdrawals you can do from your house to send your kids to college or start a business. Right. None of those opportunities. I think it's like when you start thinking about, it's not just the house and the appreciation of the house, but everything that instrument allows you to do in your life and in your kids' lives.
Oh, yeah. Homeownership brings stability to communities 100%. And studies will show that. Studies will show that your school grades are going to be better when you have stable housing. Your health is better when you have stable housing. Your family is able to keep tradition and culture because you have a home. All of these things, go into kind of explaining the circumstances that we live in today. Why, the African-American culture, is just, it's not just hip hop, right? And it's not just what we see. Right. But if we had homes where generations could pass down, instead, we're having to move due to instability, in a renting and apartments, you're just not able to keep those traditions and that culture. Awesome. Yeah. So homeownership is just so important. That's why I got in, and not everyone that is in real estate or owns a home even really understands the importance. But when you come from a law and policy background like myself, and you're able to see how we tracked homeownership, real estate just in this country, every decade values have doubled. for the most part, 60s, and that's still true to today. In King and Pierce County, we've seen in the last 10 years, home values double.
Yes.
10 years ago, you can buy a house in King County for $400,000.
Right.
The average home price now is $830,000.
Yep.
You know, the same is true for Tacoma, for Pierce County. Yeah. So that's why we got to make sure that everyone has access to a home, no matter what area you come from, what community you come from, or whether or not your family has had wealth or not.
Well, hopefully anybody watching now is on board and tracking with this concept. I'm curious, like, what was the spark that got these classes with the City of Tacoma going? Like, you were already doing Washington State Housing Finance, you know, BHI was in play.
Yep.
What's going on with the City of Tacoma, and what are you doing there?
Yeah, so we mentioned a little bit that the state did a homeownership study. Well, the county the City of Tacoma did a homeownership study as well. In 2021, they did a homeownership study, which actually highlighted a lot of disparities. I think a lot of COVID just gave us time to slow down.
Everybody had time to run some data.
And just run some data and analyze. And then, you know, they were pretty shocked with the results that they found, you know. And one thing that still resonates with me is that from 1990 to 2020, Black homeownership has been decreasing in the City of Tacoma, where every other ethnic race has been stable or increasing, you know. And so when numbers like that come up, when they did denial rates, you know, they wanted to really analyze why communities of color are not getting mortgage loans, right? And a lot of it is based on education. Credit history was 33% of why Black households in the City of Tacoma were being denied. Debt to income was right below that at 27%. You know, both of these concepts just come from education, you know, but again, like you said, if you don't know what you don't know. And if your family doesn't know it, then they don't even have the information to give it to you. And not everyone is going to be like me and get a full ride academic scholarship and go to the University of Washington and study law, you know, and actually get put on to this information. So, you know, but they shouldn't have to either, right? So that's why I think
most homeowners do not have a law education in order to find their way into housing, right? So why should it be, you know?
Right. Why should that be the norm? So I think the City of Tacoma really wanted to put some, you know, money where their mouth was. They wanted to put some action behind their initiative to increase Black homeownership, or just to do something about the disparities that were found in their very own study.
So I know how big city budgets are, and even though, like, sometimes when you're paying taxes, you feel like they're really big, they're not. Not when it comes. As soon as you start talking about building housing, making access to housing, funding down payment assistance programs, the numbers are gigantic. So how can a city, and a city of a couple 100,000 people, how can we make a dent in an issue this big? Like, what was their decision? Like, how are they proceeding?
Well, you know, I think what makes Washington really unique is that we have some great legislators on the state level that were pushing almost simultaneously for a change in the demographic of homeownership in the state. And the state has a lot more money than the city.
So the state was helping out as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I want to say that the City of Tacoma has applied for down payment assistance through the state so that they can offer their own specific program. And that's not just unique to the City of Tacoma.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other municipalities across the state that go to the state for resources so that they can, you know,
and they have like a fund for the year, and it, you know, eventually gets used up, I think. And so
exactly. So for this program, where the 7 classes, should we talk about the 7 classes, or should we talk about
tell me.
The City of Tacoma down payment assistance program?
I mean, you decide what goes first.
Okay. The classes. Education always comes first. So let's talk about the classes. So we have been contracted, Young Black Homeowners has been contracted to actually implement the education component of the City of Tacoma's down payment assistance program that is going to be ongoing from 2024 to 2025.
Okay.
So our education is not the one-time class, 5 hours like we described before.
Right.
Because we're trying to change the narrative around homeownership and really shift culture when it comes to the African American community and their ability to purchase homes, we're actually turning the idea of a workshop upside down on its head.
Okay.
We want to make these full-on cultural events. So we're bringing in food, right? Who doesn't love food? And culturally relevant food, too, from Black and Caribbean caterers here in the City of Tacoma.
There will be no raisins in the potato salad.
There will be no raisins in the potato
Guaranteed.
salad. No. And there'll be a different menu every time.
Awesome.
So we got food. We have childcare, because
Yes.
77% of the study from the City of Tacoma, the attendees that would actually attend their down payment assistance programs or just homeownership education programs were single parents. So we need to make sure that we have childcare in place at these places, in our workshops, in our events. We're also giving out gas cards. I've budgeted $1,000 per workshop in just free gas cards.
Help people get there and get home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I am paying for your gas. So if you just come to get your gas paid, that's a goal for me.
You're going to end up learning something anyway.
You're going to end up learning and connecting and anything. But sometimes you just got to hook people in.
A spoonful of sugar to help the medicine.
Absolutely. But also the community that we're trying to target, when we talk about the Black community,
right,
they're also on the bottom of the income, disparity graph as well. So we have to understand that this community actually needs these resources. This is not just a want or an extra thing. Like, it's very important that we are considering transportation and making sure that people can be compensated for their time.
Okay, so we're going to get you there. We're going to make sure that you're well fed. We got your kids getting watched while you have
we
so you
got
can fully
t-shirts.
focus on learning.
And then we have t-shirts, free t-shirts that are going to come. Every participant's going to get a t-shirt because that's part of the changing the culture. Walking around, you're a billboard. We all are billboards with just the things that we wear. So imagine having a shirt that says, I'm my ancestors' wildest dreams, or these positive affirmations, like not just you can do it, but like that I attended and I'm looking forward to being a homeowner. Like that's how we change culture and we shift narratives. So we're giving out free t-shirts. We also will have a DJ because we need music at every event, and just Black people, we are very rhythmic people. So if we're eating, we want to be listening to some music at the same time. So we'll make sure to have a DJ there. And then financial toolkits. These are my, this is my I'm most excited about the financial toolkits because we'll be giving you budget journals, pens, resources that you can actually use on a regular basis so that you can now apply the information that you received during the workshop.
And what does applying that information look like? What they come in, they learn this education, which I imagine is going to cover things like credit and history. You've already said history, credit, like how the homeownership process works. But like, then what? Like, what goes in the journal?
Well, this is really going to be used for budgeting.
Okay.
It's so important. One, if you're paying off debts, which we know it's a part of the process to get that DTI down.
For almost everyone.
For almost everyone, right? We got to know how to budget. So I don't only want to educate on what we should be spending our resources on, right? The 50-30-20.
Yep.
But we also need to actually be doing the line item, every day as you're spending, so you can keep track of those expenses and so that you can make sure that you're staying on budget. Today, because technology and we have Tap and we have Apple Pay and there's your subscriptions. I mean,
they make it so easy to spend money now.
Easy to spend money. Money is going out before you even know it came in.
It's true.
Because you're not like looking at your app 100%, or maybe some people don't even have the phones, the technology to get the notifications when their card is being debited.
No, it's so true.
So we really have to track. And if that means that you need to write down everything that you swiped for so that you can keep it in order, that's the simplest way to do it. And I want to make sure that they have the tools in order to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when are these classes going to be, and where are they going to be? Because like I'm trying to visualize this. Like it's a little bit like a potluck. It's a little bit like the club. Like where could this possibly be happening?
This is full on cookout, like homeownership cookouts, and they'll be right in South Tacoma. So I'm really excited. We partnered up with Edison Square.
Oh, great!
And so because they have everything that you could possibly need to put on an event like this, or a series of events. So they'll all be at Edison Square the last Saturday of every month, starting April 27th. Will be our first workshop.
Great.
And they'll be going up until October 26th. So there's 7 opportunities for people to attend.
So you don't have to go to all 7.
You don't have to go to all 7, but I will say that if you want access to the down payment assistance through the City of Tacoma, you need to attend at least 4.
Oh, okay. So 4 of the 7, and you have spring, summer, and fall to get them done.
Exactly. I would recommend attending the first 4, though, because as we said, DPA is always limited. I won't say always. The state has a lot more resources than the city.
Yeah.
So these funds are limited. And there will be people at the first 4 and that will be going after the down payment assistance. So if you want to be one of those people.
Okay, so let's say I go, use the gas card, the kids are watched, I learn everything from you, I use the budget, like I qualify, I go to 4 sessions. what is it exactly that I now have access to that I don't just have, like, that I don't have access to by going through the Washington State Housing Finance Commission? Like, what's different about this?
Great question. So the City of Tacoma's down payment assistance program is a little bit more robust than the state's. The state offers about 4 to 5% down payment assistance up to a cap, depending on the county. The City of Tacoma is offering $60,000 per household in down payment assistance. And some of those funds can be used towards, closing costs. And as we mentioned before, you'd only need 3.5% to really, be eligible as far as down payment to purchase a home, to get your mortgage, whether it's FHA or conventional, 3.5%. But that ends up...
I'm a real estate agent, so I'm trying to do the math in my head. I'm like, $60,000. Okay, is that 10% on a median priced home plus is that your closing costs as well? I mean, it's pretty much everything you need,
exactly.
Right?
The idea is that you're going to be able to get into a home with little to no money out of pocket and have an affordable payment per month because you're not just putting down the minimum requirement, which is that 3.5 to 5%.
Right. And then, whatever happens, so you buy your $400,000 house now, and in 20 years, you sell it. You just have to reimburse that initial $60,000 back to the city.
Correct.
Which is going to be like $12 in 20 years.
Right.
Like, it's going to buy you a carton of milk, basically.
Yeah, but then all the other equity is yours. So that's
this is like the tool to get in, to get ahead.
Absolutely. It's how you can just get in the door, literally, because we know it's difficult in this market. Not only is it a high value market, but it's a competitive market with inventory being low.
Yes.
So how can we stand out? How can we inspire and encourage people to still get into a high value and competitive market? Well, we got to have resources to do that.
Well, and I mean, we both sold a few houses in our day, and I feel like the key thing that I'm always trying to tell buyers is, like, the person who's most prepared is usually the one that's going to win a multiple offer. When you wait until, I'm going to find my realtor at the last minute. I found a house, so I better find a lender. I better find an agent. I better find a down payment assistance program. Like, it's best, even if you don't know when this is going to happen, to, like, go and get the ball rolling and, like, get prepared, right?
Absolutely.
Even if you feel like this is a year down the road or 2 years down the road.
Yeah.
Once they've done the 4 classes, I guess this is the next question. How long does it last? Like, how fast do you have to buy a house? Like, what if you still need to pay down some debt, but you qualify?
Yeah. So you have 2 years, just like the state's program.
Okay.
Where you have the certificate. You're going to get a certificate because we're going to check in at every single workshop. Make sure to scan the QR code and check in. You will not be getting any of those free stuff.
I kind of feel like you're going to remind people like 20 times.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But...
let's remind them now.
Plugged. So you will get a certificate once we have at least the 4 classes on, in our record. And then there still is the area median income requirements that the city has for their down payment assistance program.
Right.
And that's going to be based on household size. So as long as you meet their requirements, you have the education, then you should be good to go.
We'll go ahead and drop in the show notes the down payment assistance page for the city, too, so you can take a look for yourself at what those requirements are. So it's fall 2024. You've just finished your last class. Like, you're looking back on this endeavor. Like, what are you hoping to achieve? Like, what will success look like for you when you look back? Like, how will you know, like, you did it?
Yeah. Well, and this might be a little ambitious, but I'm an ambitious person, so I shoot for the stars and land on the moon. It's fine. My goal is to have at least 100 people at every workshop. So we definitely, and we're trying to shift the culture, change the narrative. Not everyone is going to get the down payment assistance program. Not everyone is even going to be ready or thinking it's even possible for them to purchase a home. But that's exactly who we want to show up. We want the people that never even thought it would be possible to come to these workshops, get your plate of food, get your gas card, get your T-shirts, and at least we planted a seed, and that's how we're going to. So really my goal and the city's goal is to just try to change the culture a little bit and educate around these areas. We didn't talk about really the classroom content or the workshop event content, but every workshop will have a different focus.
Oh, okay.
So
they have like a different theme each month.
A different theme. You're not going to come back and hear the same thing twice. So you can also pick and choose which workshops you want to attend based on what you need, right?
Can you give us a little preview of the different themes?
Absolutely. So we already talked about credit and budgeting. We're definitely going to dive into history in every workshop because we need to just, one, remove the person from the blame, and, first and foremost. But we'll be talking talking about credit. We'll be talking about the pre-approval process, the home buying process. You know, we'll talk about VA loans because there's a huge veteran community in Tacoma, and there's a lot of information that is just lost when it comes to VA loans. So we'll have a class specific for VAs. Then we'll talk about maintaining homeownership because we want to make sure that these homeowners can sustain their homes, right? And especially since COVID, we've seen a wealth of foreclosure mitigation programs surface, forbearance programs. The bank does not want their house back.
No, they learned that lesson already. They don't want to do that again.
They don't want the house back. They want you to be able to make the payment.
Okay.
So we want to educate and inform people so that they're not scared to call up their loan servicer and just have those conversations and communicate, you know, what their hardship or whatever they're facing. So that's just a little sneak peek of what we have. That's obviously not the full 7, but you'll have to just come or go to our website at youngblackhomeowners.net and you can find all of that information.
So you're saying like the goal is to have 100 folks at each of the classes. And of course, not everybody's going to buy a house right away. But is the goal to like do this again next year? You know, if it's well attended, is that the idea that the city will say, okay, we've got something here, let's keep this going?
Yeah. Well, City of Tacoma.
Yes.
I'm like, whenever you need homeownership services, Young Black Homeowners will be here to assist. So that's the goal. We want to make sure that our presence is sustained in the community, in Tacoma, in Seattle, throughout Washington State. And we're actually hoping to take the brand nationwide because there's homeownership. I mean, Black homeownership has decreased on a national level since our peak in the 60s, where it was about 50%. We're sitting around 45%. You know, Seattle, this is in Washington, this is my birthplace. This is my home. So, of course, it only makes sense to make HQ here.
Right.
But even so, based on the most recent State of Housing in Black America, the Sheba Report, we'll put the link to that as well. Homeownership in this area has declined significantly compared to the national average. So we're about 45% on the national average. We're about 30% for Black homeownership here, which is kind of alarming because we only make up 4% of the state's population.
Right.
So that's a 15%, you know, problem right there that I'm committed, YBH is committed to addressing. But certainly, we're going to be here. Our roots are here, and we're not going nowhere.
Okay, so another question. Let's say there's a realtor watching or a lender, and they're like, oh, I have clients that I think should go to this. Like, are they allowed to send their clients to your class? Like, is that against the rules?
Please send your client. I will not take them. You can attend with your clients if you like.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yes. You know, a lot of this is building community. It's building the network. I love to know what other real estate professionals are out there that are engaging with the Black community and that would like to see more trauma-informed homebuyer education in their area.
Right.
We could come out and do those workshops. You know, this YBH, we definitely, as a broker, you know, we're scaling. And if you like to join the YBH team as a broker, then there's opportunity for that as well. But you certainly don't have to be. And we want to make sure that everyone knows that they're welcome to attend.
And that includes lenders as well. Like they can...
I mean, it might be a great idea. If there's going to be 100 potential buyers in the room, it might be a good idea, to show up and to just connect and make yourself known.
Well, and I think for so many people that are in the real estate business, whether you're in title or loans or real estate, like the discourse around this topic, like our education on this, I mean, it's getting better, but it hasn't been great. And like any opportunity to get this education is really good, and you can serve your clients better when you have it.
Absolutely. And we love YBH. We throw events. So we just had our second annual Black Equity Ball, which is a huge red carpet formal event. It's a celebration of existing Black homeowners, but also inspiring future Black homeowners. So we, you know, have a champagne toast. We celebrate the achievement of crossing that threshold, but we're also providing resources for those that aren't yet homeowners. Because one, you need the representation. You need to see other people that look like you, that have achieved the goal. But then also you need to know what information is out there that can help you become a homeowner as well. So we love, you know, to partner with other organizations to teach, to have events, not just educational events, but celebrations, just getting together and just cheer, you know, that's part of the culture shifting, right? It's just getting together and talking about the fact that this is a tangible goal.
Not just another workshop.
Not just another workshop.
Some of those can be real dry.
This is not your grandma's workshop.
Okay, good. So is there anything that I haven't asked you about this series of classes that you want to make sure that people know?
Well, they'll take the time. They'll be from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay, so midday.
Midday.
Okay.
Midday, come.
I don't know why the DJ had me thinking this was 7 o'clock at night. Okay,
Yeah.
10 to 1, the
10 to
last
1.
Saturday
Last
of
Saturday
every month.
Of every month.
Okay.
Right here in South Tacoma at the Edison Square. Yeah, no, we're really excited. We hope to see everyone. You don't have to live in Tacoma. I guess I should say that.
Yeah.
You don't have to live in Tacoma to attend these workshops.
You can be like Anzhane and live across the street from Tacoma in Forever Way.
Exactly. You can live in Seattle. The reality is, if you're a first-time home buyer, Tacoma might be the only affordable place for you to actually find housing.
Right.
So this program is for you. Yes, the down payment assistance only is for the city of Tacoma, but also, you know, if you're just looking to get the information from somebody that comes from a similar background
Right.
as you, this is the place. You belong in this space, and we want you here.
That is awesome. Anjane, thank you so much for coming on and for explaining all of this, answering all of my dumb questions. I really appreciate it. Like, this is going to be an amazing summer. Like, all the stuff you're doing is amazing.
I'm so excited. I hope maybe we'll do like a recap after the workshops and talk about how well they went.
Yeah,
That would be awesome.
let's do that.
Okay. Hey everyone, it's Anzhane Slaughter here, the CEO and founder of Young Black Homeowners, and I want to personally invite you to our 7 series of homeownership events happening right here in the city of Tacoma. These are not your grandmother's homeownership workshops. We're offering gas cards, food, t-shirts, childcare, and of course, education to inspire and encourage you to get into homeownership. They'll take place on the last Saturday of every month, starting this month in April 27th, all the way up until October 26th. You can learn more on our website at youngblackhomeowners.net. I hope to see you guys there.
If you like this podcast, check out movetotacoma.com. Movetotacoma.com is a neighborhood guide, blog, and podcast to help people in Tacoma, Pierce County, and beyond find their place in the city of destiny. More information at movetotacoma.com. Move to Tacoma is part of the Channel 253 podcast network. Check out our other shows: Grit and Grain, Nerd Farmer, Interchangeable White Ladies, Crossing Division, Citizen Tacoma, What Say You, We Art Tacoma, Flounders B-Team, and Taco Man. This is Channel 253.